Hello, and welcome back to the Zone Media Network. I'm Griffin, your host. Today's big story. President Trump has just shocked Portland by officially deploying federal troops to confront Antifa. Yes, you heard that right. Despite strong opposition from Oregon's governor, this move shows Trump is serious and not backing down. I'll be breaking down every detail of this major deployment right here on today's show. Let's dive in.
Meanwhile, President Trump is directing Secretary of War Hegseth to send U.S. troops to Portland and use full force if necessary as protesters ravage the city and attack ICE facilities. As Attorney General Bondi says, anti-ICE violence has ignited a new era of violence. Taking to Truth Social, he said, at the request of Secretary of State, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from the attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists.
Well, it's not being received very well by Oregon's governor and leaders there who, despite the scenes we have seen playing out night after night of the protesters camped out, here you see it right now, that is not a peaceful protest. These protesters have been assaulting ICE officers and federal law enforcement out there, but yet the Oregon leaders are upset at President Trump for the deployment to try and get this under control. Listen.
There is no insurrection, there is no threat to national security, and there is no need for military troops in our major city. Military service members should be dedicated to real emergencies. The members of the Oregon National Guard, their mission is to stand up and protect Oregonians, and they will do that every day, but they are not needed in the city. They are not needed here.
We have a place at the table for everyone, willing to lend a hand, including the federal government. However, we have no tolerance for anyone in Portland who uses this difficult moment to hurt others or our home. Those with bad intentions should take a hike because they'll be held responsible for their actions.
President Trump has officially sent federal troops into Portland to confront Antifa, rioters and protesters who are once again tearing apart the city and attacking innocent people. Meanwhile, Oregon Governor Tina insists there's no real emergency, but what world is she living in? Anyone being honest knows Portland has become one of the most broken cities in America. And that's a tragedy, because I actually love Portland. One of my favorite shows was filmed there, and back then the city was amazing. But during Trump's first term, local leaders refused federal help, and the city burned. This time, Trump isn't letting that happen again. By deploying troops, he's taking the last resort action that local officials have refused to take. It's shocking that leaders in Portland and cities like Chicago would rather watch their communities collapse than accept Trump's help, all out of politics. That's not just reckless, it's treasonous. At least now we have a president willing to step in, restore order, and protect lives when local leadership has completely failed.
Tonight, a Department of Homeland Security truck arrived in Portland, Oregon, after President Trump ordered federal troops to the city. Oregon's Democratic governor says there is no national security threat there. The city's mayor says federal intervention is not needed. But earlier this month, the president threatened to send troops to Chicago. He has not done so there. He also signed an executive order placing National Guard troops in Memphis with the cooperation of the state's GOP leadership.
We're seeing massive resistance from local Democrats. And honestly, why? It makes no sense. When Democrats drop the ball, Republicans have to step in and clean up the mess. And that's exactly what's happening here. We cannot allow leaders who seem perfectly fine with the destruction of our cities to keep running things into the ground. I've spent time in Los Angeles, incredible food, incredible culture, but you can't ignore the reality. Homelessness, open drug use, and streets that aren't safe at night. That's what failed leadership looks like. President Trump is stepping up where they refuse to act, doing what has to be done to restore order. Democrats today aren't even defending their own law enforcement. It's sickening. This isn't the party of JFK anymore. It's been dragged so far to the left that even moderates are now tolerating political violence and chaos, as if riots and crime are acceptable. They're not. Next.
Well, Kelly, that news of President Trump deploying troops here to Portland, sending shockwaves to the city, to the locals, all the way to the lawmakers who are very angry and having a strong reaction. Right behind me, we are starting to see some protesters start to rally, but later tonight is when we'll see larger crowds gather here. This is the ICE facility in Portland, Oregon. This has become the epicenter of ICE protests nationwide. They have now spread to other ICE facilities, including Chicago, where our correspondent Mills Hayes is reporting from. And Kelly, we were here last night, and around 25 to 30 protesters gathered here wearing that black bloc attire, covering their faces. It was a much smaller turnout compared to some of the other nights. We are expecting a much larger turnout later today. Now, we did see ICE agents attempting to clear out the driveway. You could see shields and gas masks clearing out that driveway from protesters. We didn't see any clashes here on the ground, but other nights have turned quite violent. Now, the Trump administration is setting their targets not only on Portland, but the far left-wing group Antifa, called Antifa professional agitators who were being paid. The Trump administration has now designated Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, with the Department of Homeland Security also saying, quote, that rioters in Portland, Oregon have repeatedly attacked and laid siege to an ICE processing center. Many of these criminals have been arrested and hit with federal charges. Rose City Antifa, a recently designated domestic terrorist organization, illegally docks ICE officers. They publish their home address online. And on public flyers, individuals associated with Antifa also sent death threats to DHS personnel. And this morning, President Trump confirming that the administration will be deploying troops right here to Portland. In a Truth Social post saying, quote, at the request of Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, I am directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facility under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. I'm also authorizing full force if necessary. The Trump administration is deploying federal agents to ICE facilities across the country, including right here in Portland.
President Trump is standing firm on his promise to bring down crime in America's deep blue cities. On the campaign trail, he vowed to protect law enforcement and empower officers and ICE agents. And now, he's delivering. One of the largest riot zones in Portland is an ICE detention facility, and it's spiraling out of control. Something must be done, and Trump is the only leader willing to act. As commander-in-chief, his duty is to protect the American people from threats foreign and domestic. And Antifa is nothing short of a terrorist organization, no matter what branding they hide behind. This isn't just about holding failed Democratic leaders accountable. Innocent bystanders are paying the price. We saw it in Minneapolis, in Chicago, and now Portland, which may be the most dangerous city in the country. The media will spin it as an invasion or paint Trump as a dictator. But that's pure fiction. The reality, he's taking violent rioters, Antifa radicals, and criminal aliens off the streets. He's protecting the very people who despise him, and that's true leadership. Think about the officers in Portland. Every night, they face mobs of hundreds, wondering if they'll even make it home to their families. Trump is giving them the backup they desperately need. ICE facilities should never be under attack in any American city. Yet Democrats allow it day after day to appease their radical base. The progressive wing of their party is dragging cities toward collapse. And if their agenda ever took hold nationwide, America would be doomed. Violence and terrorism are not solutions, but the far left continues to push them as if they are.
Trump has just ordered, apparently, the full force of the military into what he called war-ravaged Portland, Oregon. Now, he says that ICE facilities have been under attack. We saw that horrific attack in Dallas the other day. We keep seeing, my media is just full of footage of ICE vehicles being surrounded, ICE officers being attacked, facilities being attacked, facilities under siege. If these cities and states where this is happening don't go along with this, this seems to lead to a real sort of, well, you know, it almost sounds like the Democrats might be having an insurrection, John. And I know we're not supposed to say that about the Democrats, but that's what it feels like.
Well, I think that's the name of the law, isn't it? The Insurrection Act.
Precisely.
So this is a complicated subject. The circumstances under which a president can send military force inside the United States are narrowly circumscribed. And so you have the Posse Comitatus Act, which says normally he can't do it, but there are exceptions. And then you have the Insurrection Act that authorizes him to do it in certain circumstances. I think Trump's strongest case for using federal forces to preserve order is when federal employees and federal installations, federal buildings, and so on are under attack. And that is clearly the case with regard to ICE across the country, and it's clearly the case with regard to ICE in Portland. And so I think Trump has a strong case to send military forces to bring order and to protect these federal employees who are just trying to do their jobs.
Democrats play the blame game and try to paint Trump as some kind of villain for deploying federal troops. Remember, they're the ones who allowed this chaos in the first place. Just think back to Minneapolis in 2020. Remember the mostly peaceful coverage while neighborhoods were literally on fire and cars exploded in the background. That's the level of gaslighting we're dealing with now. They claim Portland is fine, but anyone with eyes can see it looks like a war zone. That's why Trump's deployment is not only justified, it's essential. He's modeling it after the successful Washington, D.C. framework, which even the city's own mayor admitted worked. The goal is simple: restore peace, make the streets safe again, and put Antifa terrorists where they belong, behind bars. Only then will there be a real deterrent against this madness. And that's where we'll leave it for today. Thank you for tuning in to American Zone. I appreciate every one of you. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video so we can keep getting the truth out there. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and take care.